This is Photographing the West podcast, the podcast for people who love to explore the western highways and byways while photographing the landscape and wildlife. And now here's your host, Kirby Flanagan.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 80 of the Photographing the West podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Kirby Flanagan. Each episode is brought to you by Photo Tees, my wearable art clothing line, available on Amazon, Etsy, and Redbubble. Today's guest is my good friend and fellow photographer, Chelsea Doyen-Thomas. And we're going to discuss drone photography. Chelsea uses drone photography on a daily basis in his day job as a real estate photographer, and in his other job as a nature and wildlife photographer. So he has extensive hands-on knowledge of what works and what doesn't, and an enthusiast knowledge of all the possibilities of drone photography as well as its limitations. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you, Kirby. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do photographically speaking.
Well, I'm a photographer. I live out here in Dayton, Nevada, just east of Carson City, out in the desert. And I live out here on purpose because I want the wildlife possibilities here. The photography aspect is phenomenal. The topography, everything's beautiful. So I moved here about 12 years ago. Been doing photography for about 10 years seriously. I specialize in real estate photography, drone and aerial photography, and videography. That's mainly how I've been keeping busy for the past few years.
Good. Well, I know you've been busy, all right? So
how been busy.
How long have you been doing the drone photography, and how do you use that?
Well, I got into drone photography. At first, I was shooting real estate 4 or 5 years ago, and the realtors that I was working for at that time wanted drone photography. And I said, sure, I'll go buy a drone. But there was a little more to it than that. You have to shoot commercially, you have to have your Part 107 FAA pilot's license. So I studied on that. There's a number of courses out there online. I paid for a course, Remote Pilot 101. He's a pilot in Ocala, Florida. Great online course. It's fascinating to listen to him as he teaches. He's a great teacher, and I got a 98 on my test, so it must have worked. But then, so I got into drone photography mainly through real estate ventures. The realtors really wanted the drone photography, and now I've pushed into the videography aspect of drone photography.
So before we go on, tell people where they can find that course that you took.
I believe it's called Remote Pilot 101. His name's Jason Shapert. Yeah, the course is incredible. I had to, about a year and a half ago, take my recurrent, they call it the recurrent license. Every 2 years you have to be recertified. It's only about 60 questions, but it's like a refresher course. And you just once you pay for his course, he updates it with anything new, and you can go back and brush up on your aviation knowledge, your drone knowledge, just to make sure. And then he offers extensive tutorials where he digs a little deeper into things. It's worth the money. I think I paid $150, something like that, and I'm still enrolled. He said he will send you emails, updates on any kind of new laws, and there are some new regulations that are coming through next couple of months that we'll have to keep our eye on, just to see which way the industry is going to go.
All right. Well, I'm sure it's well worth it for the real estate photography you do.
Yes, the realtors love it. It's especially on an acreage or something with a little more land involved. But on a regular residential home, drone photography, you can capture that front shot, the front exterior shot with a little elevation. They used to real estate photographers in the past to use maybe a 10, 15-foot ladder that they carried with them, and they would get up on the ladder to take that shot so it wouldn't be so flat. But now with the drone, you just pop it up there, and also in a residential neighborhood, sometimes you'll get looky-loos or people a little angry with a drone in their neighborhood. It's a little too loud. But now with my drone, if I'm in a neighborhood, I'm up and down in maybe 5 minutes. That's all it takes.
Good deal. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the ways to use drones and how to pre-visualize what you want to take with the drone, whether it's stills or videos. Talk about that some.
Yes, in my opinion, I can tell you what mistake I made at the beginning was just like with still photography with your regular camera. You have to look for a certain perspective, of course, and composition, but something must be with a drone photography, something must be in the foreground of interest. With drone photography, it looks a little flat if your landscape is just open with nothing to give it a perspective. And now when I shoot with my drone photography, I make sure that something is in the foreground, something of interest, anything really, but something to give it some perspective. Photos will turn out much more interesting. Just like in regular photography, you want to make your composition where it draws the viewer in.
Sure. How long does it take to be able to do that with a drone?
Well, I would say it's just like regular still photography, practice, practice, practice. It took me probably, if I'm honest with myself, 6 months to a year where I would churn out something that I would be proud of, or not necessarily artistic, but something that really stands up against everybody else's work. Realtors, a lot of realtors, they want they're not looking for dramatic shots. Obviously they want to showcase their home. So you have to put on different eyes when shooting real estate because it has to serve a function where sometimes people get a little carried away with trees and foliage and the clouds and trying to make it look a little more dramatic than it needs to look. You want it to be eye catching, but you don't need anything superfluous or distracting. But that's the one thing I noticed with real estate photography is that just hit your marks and make sure that everything is composed properly. And the other thing is a big amateur mistake is your vertical lines. Make sure they're all lined up and squared up. Lightroom does that. I think it's 2 mouse clicks. Photoshop can do it too, but in Lightroom you can fix your vertical lines. It corrects the distortion from your lens. The wider the lens, the more distortion you have on the ends. But just make sure your vertical lines are done, and you can correct those with your drone too.
So talk about how you're approaching photography for landscape and wildlife, drone photography, that is.
The drone photography with basically it's for me it's landscape. I have shot video with my drone, wild horses from a distance. Personally, I get a little skittish when I don't want to frighten them or make them stampede. I've had footage where they get a little startled and they might bolt, but I don't want to scare them in the long run. So basically, my my videography with drones is landscape. And once again, when you're doing that, you have to look for that perspective and something interesting in the foreground that maybe you can shoot over, or when you're pulling back, so you're not shooting a huge vista, a big panorama, because just like in regular photography, you will stand there and you will see this broad vista that just takes your breath away, and sometimes it just doesn't translate when you look at in Lightroom. You look at your screen, just like with drone photography and videography, it doesn't translate over unless you have something to give it perspective. So landscape photography is where I use the drone most. Wildlife photography, I've had plenty of opportunity to do it, but I always kind of back off. I don't want to frighten the animal. Maybe they're in the breeding season. Maybe there's a nest nearby or a den, something like that. I don't want to disrupt anything.
Sure, that makes sense. Plus, if it's a large bird or a large animal, they might take out your drone, I guess.
Yes, you can YouTube you could put in the search eagles versus drones or hawks versus drones. There's a lot of footage out there where drones are getting attacked, and I've had a few close calls with that, but never a direct attack on them. Hawks usually come out of nowhere when I'm droning something, and they'll establish their territory real quick.
Yeah, no doubt. So I know one of the shots that you like to do is to, if you've got a vertical landscape, is kind of zoom in on it and then zoom up over to the broader landscape. What do you call that, and how do you approach that?
That's exactly it. Zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. I will first, recon the area, see if there's anything interesting over a cliff. A lot of times with a tree or a stand of trees, you can get a great dramatic effect by rising up and then seeing the vista beyond, or film it in reverse. Sometimes it's safer to do it with a drone. It's safer to do it in reverse, and vice versa. It's safer to do it forward. Just have to assess the situation when you're hiking around looking for a cliff or some kind of a broad vista. Just make sure you're safe. Never lose sight of your drone, which is also the law. You have to keep it within a visual line of sight at all times.
Okay, that's good to know for a number of reasons, I guess. So I know from our discussions that with some of your cameras, you can take both stills and video with your drone. Is that right?
Yes, the particular drone that I have is the DJI Phantom 4 Pro, and the reason I purchased that is because you can manipulate your camera settings from the ground. The other ones you have to bring down and reset them. But I can set my shutter speed or reset my shutter aperture ISO from the ground, which is a big plus, especially shooting video. If you're spinning around getting different shots, you want to make sure your shutter speed. If you don't, sometimes you won't have an ND filter on it, and you'll have to manually quickly adjust your shutter speed if you're going into the sun. But there's really not a lot of difference between the two with drone. For me, I shoot more video than I do stills, just because I'm just fascinated by the videography part of the drone photography.
What's the resolution of the camera you're using on that drone as far as stills or video?
The resolution is, I believe the stills is 300. Oh, I know. Yeah, it's not a 4K, the Phantom 4. It's a 1080p.
Okay. So HD.
It's HD. I'm looking at a drone now. Autel just released the Evo 2, and this one is fascinating because it has interchangeable cameras. You can change from a camera maybe with a smaller sensor to one with a bigger sensor, one with more capabilities. Of course, you're going to pay more, but with a DJI, you can't do that. You have to buy the whole drone. So this one has great prospects, has a good future.
What would you recommend in the way of a drone for somebody that's just getting started in drone photography?
DJI has the manufacturer has a drone that's been out for about 6 months, I believe, maybe longer. It's called the Mavic Mini, and it fits in the palm of your hand. It is you can hand launch it and hand retrieve. You can run it from your iPhone. You get a controller with it, but put your iPhone or your Android in there, and it's so much. It'll fit in your pocket. It's so easy to use. I never want to say they're indestructible, that you can't crash them, but the only drawback with this one is it's so light that the wind can catch it and take it. But to learn the drone, to learn how to operate a drone, that's the one I would recommend. The Mavic Mini by DJI.
Does that have a built-in camera or?
Has a three-way gimbal axis on its camera. I believe that one is 1080p also, and you can take stills and video. I should say also they hold a mini SD card is the format for their memory card. The video quality is stunning on the Mavic Mini. I take the card out, put it in my computer, and even without any color grading or color correction, the video quality is amazing. It's jaw dropping, and I think I paid $500 for it. It's not the price is great for an entry level drone. The Phantom 4 that I have, I think that was $2,000. But once again, that's because of the photography capabilities. It's built for photographers.
Is that the one that you can put other cameras on?
That's the new one that I'm looking at, the Autel. I believe it's spelled AUTEL. It's the EVO 2, Roman numeral 2, and it's an amazing camera. I've seen it on YouTube demonstrations. I don't think it's available yet to the public to buy. I think it's being released, or it has been released, but the demand was so high that they're running out. So far it's a great looking drone to me.
So I thought that the Mavic would take like your 850. Is that not true? Can you put aftermarket cameras on there, like a Nikon or a Canon or?
Oh, I see. I understand. No, I don't believe you can on these. They're not that heavy. I know the DJI makes an Inspire that might be able to hold. I can't remember which model it was, but the way these drones, the ones I've described from DJI, the Phantom Pro and the Autel, the way they're designed now, and the capability, the camera capabilities, you really don't need to, in my opinion. The footage and the quality are just fantastic. It's amazing. It's what makes it so much fun.
So I guess everybody that's interested at all in drones has heard of DJI. Who is Autel and what are they about?
Autel is another company out there. Parrot makes a drone. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I've only dealt with DJI. I've had great customer service response from them. I haven't needed any work on my drone. I shouldn't have said that because now something could happen, but I've never had to turn it in for service. They answer all of my questions, everything. Emails, I've sent them emails. I've chatted with them online. They've been a great company. The other one, the Autel, I don't know. I just it seems that there's more capabilities in it, and I just wanted to try something different and see when it comes out for a backup.
So your recommendation would be to anybody that's just starting out to go with one of the DJI drones?
In my opinion, that would be my recommendation. I've been in Best Buys, the electronic stores. They have on the shelf, they've got props, they have batteries, all of the accessories for DJI. They have a few other brands, but DJI is what they predominantly carry them. You can go right to Amazon, all your parts, everything you need is right there. I'm not big on the technical aspects of the drones. I don't concern myself too much with it, but it just seems like DJI makes it very intuitive to work your drone, to learn it. It's kind of like the Apple computer, whereas everything is just where it should be. That's how I feel about DJI. It's very easy to learn how to fly it.
Have you ever lost a drone?
I've never lost a drone, and I feel skittish saying that too. I've come very close a few times. I've lost. I was doing a job for a geothermal company that was going to buy this 500-acre plot or 500-acre landmass for a geothermal well or plant, generating plant, and they wanted me to map it out with my drone, and I lost sight a few times, and it was okay because you get your binoculars and you'll see, but I'm really cautious when I fly. When you get your FAA license, your Part 107, there are a ton of regulations, but all of them make sense, and that's the way I fly. I do exactly how you're supposed to do it. There's a lot of people that I see in my neighborhood even where they've bought drones and they're flying irresponsibly. They're making it bad for everybody. But you really should get your license. It's actually fun to do. The knowledge, what you'll learn, it's a lot of fun.
So isn't there a button on in the software you can press to bring your drone home?
The return to home button. It will when you hit that, it climbs to your preset altitude, which is very important. You want to set it high enough because your obstacle avoidance system is defeated on the return to home. It just, as a crow flies, it will fly straight back. So if your height is set at 60 feet and there's a tree in its way on the way back home, and it's 100 feet, it'll go right into the tree. So set your return to home at least. Mine's set to about 250, 300, just in case. If your batteries run low when your drone's out there and you ignore the signal, it will return to home no matter what you do. It'll just come home with just enough battery to land again. So yes, it's a nice feature.
Some of the drones have kind of a terrain avoidance feature to them too, I think.
Yeah, they've got underneath, from underneath, there's a couple of sensors like sonar where they can read the terrain. DJI makes a drone that maybe is a little too cautious sometimes, but I like that. It won't let you get into certain situations. I had to shoot a home the other day with open beam ceilings, 2-story, and the client wanted me to fly my drone inside to get the shots. So I had to take it off of obstacle avoidance, and that's kind of that was pretty hairy, but we got it done.
Any mechanical damage to your drones when you're flying them?
Nothing so far. I've had props that would break. Sometimes on takeoff, if it's too windy, where you really shouldn't be flying too high. But in real estate, sometimes 50 feet is as high as I'll go, and I've taken off and it'll tip over and the props will dig into the asphalt or the concrete, wherever it is, and break. So I always have 2 or 3 sets there and replace them. But that's the only thing mechanical I've ever had. happen. The other tip would be, I wish I would have got more batteries for my drone. I have two now, and I can get 30 minutes a piece out of them. If it's cold, maybe 20 minutes. If it's windy out, it's dropped substantially your battery time. You get about 10, 15 minutes. But I've been on jobs where I needed more airtime, where I've had to come back after my battery's charged, because it takes a little time to charge the batteries. But I wish I would have, when I first started, just got 4 batteries right up front. If you plan to use your drone commercially, you should do that.
So do you get a warning when the batteries are getting low?
Yes, a very loud audible warning. And then when it gets to critical low, a voice will tell you that return to home has been activated. And then at that point, you really have no control. It's on autopilot. It'll just come back. I tend not to let it go that low.
What kind of batteries do they take? Are they standard alkaline batteries or lithium batteries, or
the lithium ion batteries? Yes.
Okay.
They take a little longer to charge up. They're not too instant. But that's the one thing I have noticed through all this time I've had my drone. I always think if I had one more battery, sometimes I might rush my job a little bit. Not where it's noticeable, but I would have felt more comfortable with more than 2 batteries. Especially, like I said, when it's cold, it decreases battery life. And
Sure.
then also when there's a lot of wind, all the prop motors are fighting against the wind, and it just really drains the juice. I've actually had a battery last less than 10 minutes once. The wind was blowing so hard. I wasn't up more than 20 feet. So it wasn't a danger, but I had to fight that wind to get a shot. The battery lasted 10 minutes. That was it.
So drones also have a stabilizer system built into them, like cameras do, if I understand it right.
Well, you have the gimbal, which is the stabilizer, and then you have GPS positioning. And once it's locked in GPS, it will hold that position for as long as you need, as long as your battery lasts. And it's really fascinating to watch how it stays in position like that, and how it can do that because really it's just four propellers, and that's it. It's amazing how that can happen. But like I said, it's just part of the fun to do, because the shots you can get, they used to require a helicopter to get those action kind of shots, and those vistas and the views. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I've certainly seen some beautiful ones.
As we were talking here, on my screen it just popped up an email from that from the place to take to get your pilot's license. It was M0 and 0 spelled out, M0A.com. The letter M, ZEROA.com.
Okay, that's easy enough.
Flight training, he does everything, but he just sent another email update, drone photography or drone operation. They just bought the Autel Evo 2, and they're giving it a flight demonstration.
Oh, cool.
It's just the hot one right now. Everybody wants to check this one out.
How much does that one run?
For the everything package, just under 2,000.
Okay. So competing with DJI.
Yeah. The other thing I should point out is with drone photography is the flight restrictions. Once you take the course and go through the school, they'll teach you how to do it, how to read the vector map, aviation maps, to find out if there's any restrictions in your area. But it's very important to follow those rules and those guidelines and to get your authorizations. If you're in an area that has a restriction, you want to make sure you're already authorized to fly in there after you've made your appointment for your whatever commercial job you have. Because the DJIs also, they won't, they follow geofencing rules, and you can't enter an area that has a geofence around it unless you're licensed or you get your authorization first.
You can't fly around airports and other
Exactly.
military facilities and things like that.
Right. The MOA is the military operating areas. No, you just can't do it. You can fly in, there's a lot of military areas that they say, yeah, it's just beware, and there's no problem. But if it's restricted, then it's absolutely no way. You just don't do it. Be good.
Yeah, be nice if all the drone flyers would follow that notion.
Yeah, it would, but they're changing. I think they're going to make it really hard for the hobbyist, which means the person who doesn't go and get their license. They're going to put the clamps down on that kind of activity, because it really does behoove you to get licensed, because you'll find things out that you didn't even know existed. It's not as simple as what you think to put your drone in the air and be comfortable. You want to be confident when your drone is in the air. You don't want people to distract you. You shouldn't be talking to other. You really should not be talking to other people. You should be paying attention to what you're doing. Paying attention to the weather, to the wind, and most importantly to other people. You don't want to endanger anybody.
For sure. Is there any hope that drones will get any quieter as they improve them?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. I just got I ordered 4 new props a couple weeks ago, and they've come out with, for my model, the Phantom 4 DJI, some brand new props that are supposed to be 6% quieter on takeoff. Now, I haven't tested it yet. It's been pretty windy out here where I live, and I was just going to wait for a nice calm day and take them out. But yes, the props are quieter. I've noticed that the Mavic Mini is pretty quiet, and that's something that I think they're always striving for, is a quieter drone. We would appreciate it because as speaking for myself, I don't like to draw attention to myself when I'm flying a drone. I don't want people to know that I'm just I'm just shooting the house. I'm going to get out of here. I'm not looking around or anything, but they attract a lot of attention when they're buzzing around.
Yeah, that they do, and that's probably the most irritating part about it, is the prop noise, at least from my point of view.
Yeah, so when I'm in a neighborhood, that's the part I just hate. If it's a tight neighborhood, houses close together, you just know you're going to attract. Somebody's going to come out, invariably. They do, and you just deal with it. The FAA encourages you to be a good steward, educate people, tell them what the law is. In Nevada, it's if I'm going to cross a property line, I have to go 250 feet up and then cross, which I don't have any reason to do anyway. So I just photograph the house and stay away from private property. But a lot of people don't realize that, and they think it's a violation, and I've had them call the police on me, and the police have to explain to them that no, I'm licensed, I could be in the airspace. I don't know where it's going to go, but I think once everybody's comfortable and once everybody knows. And the other thing I need to stress is, just like in life, if you just use some respect, just respect people and their space. Don't try to push them or irritate people. Just when they ask you a question, answer it. And I've had people ask me, "Can you not do that?" And I've actually said, "Yes, I'm done. I'm out of here." take it down. I won't shoot extra pictures. Just respect their space, and they'll respect you.
Going back to a different topic, do you recommend getting insurance on your drone?
Yes, definitely. I use. I'm a member of the PPA, the Professional Photographers of America, and they have a great drone program within that organization. You can get certified, not licensed FAA, but you can go through their course. I don't know anything about it, but they do have a course, and they do have a lot of instruction they can give you. But they also have their own insurers. It's Locked in Infinity, and I get my drone insurance through them. It's about $240 a year, and it's $1 million of liability, equipment replacement too if you crash. I don't know. It's just 240, 250 a year. It's all in one policy. Well worth it, especially if you, God forbid, if you hit somebody or you hurt a person, then you at least you're covered that way.
Yeah.
You don't want to. Legally, you can't fly over people. So if you see a shot like that and they're going over a crowd of people, it's illegal unless they got an exemption. So you should not fly over people. I mainly get my insurance in case, not so much for physical hurting somebody, though I'm covered, but it's more for property damage, because you never know. You could have a malfunction and just go right through someone's window or land on a car or something like that. You want to make sure you're covered.
Right. Do you remember whether that policy has a deductible or not, or is it?
No, there's no deductible on mine.
Okay.
If I crash my drone or lose it, they'll cover it. And I've had it 3 years now and 4 years, and I've never had a claim. I've never used it. You just have it. It's good to have on your when you're looking for new clients, to have all your policies. Because I have a photographer's policy also separate from that for the same thing.
Right. That's almost a requirement if you're doing anything professional these days.
Yeah, you have to have your liability and cover yourself just in case. And that's if you and Professional Photographers of America, they offer one of those too. They also offer with their membership, you get a equipment damage and replacement. I think it's up to $25,000, and it's like a $500 deductible.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of PPA, I think it's them that has free access to all their video and learning tools in the midst of the drone or midst of the current virus epidemic.
Yes, they're very informative. For the price you pay, they send a nice magazine every month, and you get online access to a lot of information. And their forums are their member forums are very extensive. You can jump in and with their search capabilities, you can find some problem that you thought it's just your problem. No, other people have experienced it too. Type it in there, you'll see all these solutions to anything with photography and drone. It really is a good deal.
Okay, sounds like a great resource. Anything else in the way of legal problems that we ought to talk about before we go?
You should register. There's a website. I don't know the offhand. I know if you just go to FAA.gov, you can go to their drone part, and that's a great, valuable resources right to them. They'll answer your questions. They'll actually, if you email them, they will respond back. They want it to be a profitable but safe industry too. FAA.
If you're not doing it professionally, do you need to be licensed?
As of right now, as I understand it, no. You would be considered recreational hobbyist, but then the restrictions are greater. For example, I live out here in Dayton. There's a small airstrip here. It's Class E airspace, so I can fly here. I don't need permission because the FAA gives me permission to fly in that airspace. Now, a hobbyist, the law is you can't fly within a 5-mile radius of that airport, and even though it's Class E, you can't do it. That's one of the more glaring ones, though I see it all the time around me. But you're not supposed to within 5 miles.
So people who are doing silly things like that are what's bringing on these new regulations, I suppose.
Exactly. I should also say that one of the things that's coming is the remote. I'm not sure what the acronym is, but it's like a remote identification of your drone, which DJI, from what I understand, already has it in place inside the drones. They just have to figure out how to switch it on for everybody to be active. Is what it entails is you would have an app on your phone that could identify that drone in the air, but they're hammering it out. They don't know if they want to put the person's name who owns the drone, which we're fighting against. I don't want that. We're you know their name, just a license number, like a license on a car. You know, their name doesn't come up, just a license. In case somebody's doing something wrong, you can just turn that in then. But they're still hammering that out where you'd be able to tell who's flying the drone.
Sort of like a transponder on an aircraft, I guess.
Correct. I think it's a good idea. You should be able to do that to put people's minds at ease. Just your homeowner that comes out and hears it, he can go to his phone. It'll show him, yep, it's registered. And I'd like to say that if it's legal, because with my registration, they know I'm FAA, that I have a license. Well, then where he is legal, or he shouldn't be in that airspace. He's a hobbyist and he's breaking the law. I don't know what they're going to do, but I think it's going to be a little more restrictive. The next phase of the new laws.
Yeah, probably so. That's how the government tends to work.
Yeah, incrementally it happens. It's sad on one part, but it was inevitable. As long as I've been flying, I could see this coming because people, they just don't. It's that respect thing. They just don't respect other people's space, and you should not be flying in people's backyards. Or I live on a golf course, so they think that's it's still private property, and they just fly down the course. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know it's going to be they're going to punish the people who follow the rules too, but they have to.
Well, we probably ought to wrap this up. Thanks for being on the Photographing the West podcast, Chelsea. Lots of great information in our discussion, I hope. Show notes can be found at www.flanaganphotos.com. We'll have some of those links that Chelsea mentioned, some of his photographs, and he's done a nice video about titled My Nevada, which is well worth watching as well. We'll be back on April 15th with a new show. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Photographing the West podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast in iTunes and leave us a review. Till next time, here's wishing you safe travels and good light.